Bob, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited about today's conversation, Bob. There's been so much in your very long career that you've been able to achieve and share insights from. And the thing that I'd like to just focus on at the beginning of the outset of our conversation is what does it mean to be comfortable being uncomfortable? What does that mean?
Well, what it means and how I learned it are two different things. This is a great story. And not too many people knew it. They thought it was just kind of a line that I invented or something like that because I own the trademark for it in Canada. I own the .coms for it, but this is like 15, 20 years ago. And the reason it came up, I had a great mentor. Unfortunately, I lost him probably about 20 years ago to cancer. And he'd done his PhD and he wanted to start his own university, actually he called it High Order of Thinking. And it's just to think different. And he studied Eastern philosophies and found which ones resembled which ones and made total sense to him. He studied it for a living. And I signed up for one of his courses and did it for over a year. And we became friends and had a great relationship with him. We used to go out for coffee with him. One day at coffee, after I'd finished the course, and we're sitting around, and I said, hey, if there was a word, because I learned so much, it was one of the most fantastic courses I've ever taken in my life. And he said to me, and I said, if you could assemble, a phrase or something like that could understand the philosophies of all the things I learned from this, he says, what would it be? Well, he says, I know what it means. And he didn't even hesitate. And I said, well, what does it mean? And he goes, well, it means in an Eastern philosophy, to convert it to English, it means get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I just went like this, like in shock when he said it. And it meant you will not roll until you're uncomfortable. And that's where it started. And I just went like this, wrote down the phrase. And I told my wife about it. And she said, Karen, and she goes, buy the domains. The book's going to be fantastic. That's what the name of my book is going to be and everything. And that's how it started. And then you start going back and all the different stuff that you've done in your life. And you go, was that easy? No. Why was it uncomfortable? Oh, yeah. What did you do there? Yeah. And that's where the genesis of it was.
It's so interesting because it's almost like the foundational of growth, isn't it? Which is
Yeah.
you've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable because that's what it is to be a human. It's constantly, any level of growth is uncomfortable. It's not possible to have growth in a comfortable way. So it's so profound. I really love it.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened with it. It was, and then I look back and it doesn't matter if it was wrestling or anything else. That's exactly what it was. It was just like, I trained in the Soviet Union back in there when the curtain was up still. You know what I mean? And how comfortable was that? You know what I mean? You had gun guard around you. It was all their militia people that were wrestling because it was, they say it's amateur sport, but back in the day they were paid full-time military just to wrestle, right? And back in when it was all communist and everything, it was quite a different feel. You know what I mean? You were walking around with armed guards all the time.
Yeah. How do you feel like that statement has showed up during your life? Like what you shared something there, which is quite a scary situation actually. How's it shown up in either your wrestling career or in pro football? Where's that shown up?
Well, I guess the start of it's kind of a cool story. One of the things my mentor had told me back in the day, he described all kinds of weird things and described it to me differently. And one of the things he did was challenge me one time. I remember him describing relations, and I said, well, you mean relationships? There's no relations in defined in Eastern philosophy. And I said, well, I got tons of relationships. I started bragging about it. Hey, I got this, I got that. All these guys from college football, pro football, this, that, friends from high school, this, that, my spouse. And then he hit me hard. He threw me down. He goes, Bob, who don't you have good relationships with? So he flipped the page on me. And when he flipped it on me, I said, well, first guy I don't like, I said, who ever liked him was the guy I lost to. His name's Bruce Baumgartner, the guy I actually eventually lost to in the Olympics. And so the story started out really, I was bragging about all my great relationships and who don't you have good relationships with. And I mentioned Bruce Baumgartner because I found him a cocky American. He was an introvert, and the reason I really didn't, like him was because probably I lost him in the Pan Am Games, the World Cup, the World Championship. You know what I mean? I just lost him in all the tournaments, but he was kind of a cocky American. Then he says, have you ever reached out to him? And I remember him defining relations to me. And it was the ability to create new relationships and the ability to make existing ones better. I'd never heard that definition before, and that was his definition of relations. And he said, well, when have you reached out to him? And I hadn't. So he said, so we were in a tournament, actually in the Soviet Union at the time. We'd go obviously see each other in these huge tournaments. And when it come out, he ended up wrestling everybody calls it Russia now, Soviet Union back when we were wrestling, right? And he had Soviet Union right off the bat, and they were like one of the top wrestling nations. I reached out to him, and I just said, Bruce, I walked by him, I said, the good thing is we're about the only couple people that speak English at the tournament. And I said, hey, I see you got the Soviet Union right off the bat. And I reached out and gave him the olive branch and said, hey, would it be helpful if I could help warm you up? Because there's not too many guys that are 6'4", close to 300 pounds that are going to warm them up around, you know what I mean? So we said, that'd be great, Bob. Can I meet you here in a half an hour and then we'll warm up? And then I offered the olive branch to him because my coach had challenged me, one of my mentors way back in the day, and we're probably dating like 1983. And I offered, and he goes up, I warm him up, and everything goes in the match, wins it. I would draw the East German at the time, another communist country. Back then, he was a stud, real big, roided up guy. He returned the favor to me. He goes, hey, Bob, you got that on the shoulder. Hey, can I help you warm you up? And I go, yeah. And it started, we started a relationship. And this thing just perpetuated, just kept getting better. I'm in my dorm. I'm only 21 years of age at university. So I'm still in university getting ready for the Olympics. And I get a phone call. And, hello, it's Bruce Baumgartner. Bruce was the number one ranked work guy in the world, right, at the time. He's at Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and he's the assistant coach there. He goes, Bob, I get all this money. I go, what do you mean get all this money? And he says, well, I get it for training and being top-ranked person in the world. I get funded by all kinds of private companies. But he says, I can't go up and buy a car. I can't go buy clothes or anything with it. I got to spend it on training dollars. I want you to be my training dollars. I'm going to spend it on you. And I went, what's the value of a good relationship, right? So he phones me up and he says, I'll fly you down to Stillwater, Oklahoma. I'll rent you a house. I'll supply all the food. I got all the training. I got the trainers, the weight rooms, this. How about you and I get ready for the Olympics together? So I got the number one ranked guy phoning me up on the side. And I go, hey. And Canada says, no, you got to train in Canada. So I had to go against the government and say, no, you got to stay in Canada. We're funding you. You got to stay with the team. Well, my best training partner by far in the world would be the number one guy ranked in the world. So there was so much politics going back. Was it uncomfortable flow? Everybody said, no, you can't do it. I went against that and went down and trained with him. And him and I ended up in the Olympic final against each other. And obviously, and I lost to him in the Olympic final, but I wouldn't have got there without that training. You know what I mean? And so was it uncomfortable? How many different ways, right? Because Canada wants you to train in their own country, and it's probably no different in England or wherever you are. They go, oh, you're an Olympic athlete. Guess where we want you training, right? And that was the start of it. And just the relationships and that. It was fantastic. Was it uncomfortable? Hell yeah. But at 21 years old, you go against government, go against your coaches, go against that. But guess what had happened at the end of it? I became the first Canadian to win an Olympic medal in over 75 years, right? In the sport of wrestling.
Incredible.
Everybody. Yeah.
Incredible. Well, talk to me about your training for wrestling. Like, so to be the first person to win a medal in 75 years is an incredible achievement in Canada. Like, talk to me to what was the training that you were going through? Obviously, you're talking about what was happening there, but like, what was the kind of the training that you went through to kind of get into that shape to be able to compete?
Oh yeah, but we're just absolute crazy. I don't know if you see any history or videos on wrestling, but they say we're the craziest group of people, the toughest sport. If you went on a Joe Rogan, he claims up and down it's the toughest sport in the world. But yeah, you train relentless. You go until you can't move again. You know how many you're training three times a day, but full out, right? From weightlifting to running stadium stairs to, you go to total exhaustion every time, and then you're back on the mats with how many 300 pounders. You got another six guys you're going at combat one after the other, for another 2 hours at nighttime. So it's relentless, right? It's toughest sport. Yeah, people don't last in that sport. They're retired by 23, 24. Since your body's so beat up, it's just such a brutal sport because every joint and everything's getting cranked on all the time. So yeah, it's like I think there's a lot of literature out there right now about how wrestlers train. I have three brothers, and they say, "Oh, you're just going to use that wrestling stuff. You guys should just do it, and you'd rather die than give up."
It's an interesting mindset, isn't it? It's right. You'd rather die than give up. And literally, you training to exhaustion pretty much every day. You just keep going and keep going.
Yeah, it's the wrestler mentality, and that's pretty universal. People are wrestlers; they're tougher than nails. If I could hire people from my company, I'd hire wrestlers. They're the toughest. They just go through everything just until you can't move again, right? And get up and do it all over again the next day.
And is this regular? Is this every day? Are you training 4 or 5 times a week? You're training every day? What does that structure look like?
We overtrade big time now. If we had more science to it, they'd be going, "Hey guys, take a day off." We didn't do that back in the day, but now there's such a scientific approach to it. Like I watched in University of Minnesota with my younger kid the other day. You got three nutritionists. They hand you a protein shake. Your apple, orange, banana at certain times. The weight room's right there. They got two weight training people that, here's how many reps you're going to do it. Everything's just like I wish I would have had that. It's just such a science now. And then you see the wrestlers at, say, University of Minnesota, and they all look like clones at different weights. 125, 134. They're just a small. It's kind of like the old Russian doll where you put a doll inside each other and they all fit in. It's like they're clones, just at a higher weight, right up to heavyweight. The bodies are the same. They're just muscular and they're all chiseled the same way. It's actually pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. What was it like competing at that very, very highest level with the best in the world? Like, can you talk through that?
Yeah. And a lot of people, and I haven't been vocal on it by any sense of the word, but I knew I could turn most people in the world. That's what once I took them down, I could turn just about everybody in the world. That's what I was good at. And I specialized in a couple things. There's a million moves in wrestling. It's like the oldest sport in the world. Now, really when it comes down to the big matches, can you really perform? And I've seen so many athletes, like 10 times the athlete I was. Like, I'm serious, like just phenomenal athletes. But when the pressure came, they folded. Like a lot of people, I wonder what the science is, but I've seen so many great athletes at all different weight classes, and I just go look at them. I'm in the practice room, and I just go, "Wow, did you see what that person just did? Did you do that and that?" But when it came down to pressure, when people can't handle pressure, the people that handle pressure usually do well. It's the people that don't handle pressure, the anxiety and everything gets to them in the big matches. I've seen it so many different times, and I simplified it. I kind of did three animals, and I only thought, wash, rinse, repeat. I'm going to do this three things. And that's it. I didn't care if I walked in, 15,000 people were booing me for the final, or, in Venezuela, I was wrestling their heavyweight, big steroid guy, and they said, "Bob, you're in Caracas, Venezuela for that match against their heavyweight. Well, we have to have double guns around you and double guards. They take you out to the back. You might get attacked, and they're hanging off the roofs, and if that shit affects you, you know what I mean? You got to block it out of your mind." And I was pretty good at blocking all the distractions. Well, I'm just going to do this, this, and this. That's it. Now I repeat myself. It was like a broken record, right? But a lot of great athletes, like phenomenal athletes. But when pressure comes, that's the big one. People that can't handle pressure. Yeah, same thing in pro football. I've seen how many great athletes in pro football when the big game came on. So, they folded the tent. They couldn't handle pressure.
Well, where do you think, or how did you cultivate that mindset? Because we see top sporting professionals today whether it's in football or it's in wrestling, whatever it's in, get to the very, very top level. But then some of it comes back to that mindset. And it's so easy for me on the outside to say it's mindset, or someone in the newspaper to commentate and say, oh, his mindset isn't right, or this isn't right, or that, or how do you how are you able to manage the pressure at that level?
Great question. Manage the pressure for me. I was lucky because I was already at 20. I'm fifth in the world, already ranked fifth in the world. And in Kiev, Ukraine, well, it was the Soviet Union back then. And so I'm already ranked in the top 5. I'm the top Canadian wrestler. So they assigned a sports psychologist with me at a very young age. So at 20, how many people got a sports psychologist kind of like you can access anytime? So that gave me because I was ranked in the top 5 in the world, they had me kind of as high performance, you know what I mean? Top 5 in the world. And so they assigned me one and they called it, I think it was called Uprooting at the time. And they said, Bob, what is that? And they went and, this is a good story. They reached out to a whole bunch of athletes that I wrestle internationally and just communicated with them and said, what are the 3 toughest things that, so they kind of find out what I'm good at, right? And they said, what are the 3 things that you've got to be aware of when you wrestle ball? And he said, first one that came back was my first step for a big guy is quick. Like they don't even, before I could even blink, they said I was in on their leg or something, right? First step was quick. So I just attached the word cheetah to it, right? So it was my cheetah. Boom, first step quick. Remember plenty of that. Number 2, he said, once he gets a hold of a leg, he never lets go. So I just thought of alligator. It just had, it spins so I attached that one to it. They said, but once he gets my leg, I just can't get out of it. Like, I can twist, I can do this and stuff like that. And then once he takes you down, he turns you all the time. So I thought anaconda, it wraps itself around, you know what I mean? So I had these 3 animals. And then if anything happened, a boo, in Soviet Union, 15,000 people are booing you. They whistle there, but you know what I mean? Crowd or whatever. And going, that's what I'm going to. 1, 2, and 3. Then I start over again. I'm thinking 3 animals, right? Just do this, this, and this. First step, right? Quick, cheetah, right? And so it's just a broken record, and it just keeps repeating itself. And I don't deviate from it. I can't go, okay, what am I going to do now? I'm down 2 points. The ref's screwing me. The crowd's loud. You can think of so many negative thoughts. I could be the first person pinned in 20 seconds and be the laughing stock on the front page of the paper. Say worst case scenario in the Olympic final. All you think about, wash, rinse, repeat, simplify. Right?
Wow. It's interesting how, amongst that pressure and the crowd and also the potential shame that you're talking about, if you get pinned so quickly, you're able to cultivate your mind to think about those three animals. So therefore you become focused in your mind. That's really interesting. That's really interesting from a psychology perspective.
Yeah, I simplified everything. And then you repeat it again, right? And it worked for me. I could just go in and go, doop, doop. Well, what do you think about doop, doop, doop? And how many people have a sports psychologist training them at 20 years of age and stuff like that? I go, oh, I'll take that. And just worked for me right off the bat. Took my animals and ran that. There's a million different things you can think of. I don't want any negative thoughts going in. So as soon as that, I just go, boop, 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 it records for me.
So what did that do for you? I'm just thinking, right, let's just say you've lost a point. And the crowd are booing or they're doing whatever. What does that do for
Or screaming for the other guy?
Yeah, screaming for the other guy. You're on away turf or something. So what is that doing for you? I suppose if you're going cheetah, alligator.
Yeah, but first step is, guess what? Quick. Remember, if I go back to the first step, it's just back to what got you to the dance, what got you there in the first place were these 3 things. So those 3 things are going to get you to the next level too, right? So why you're not changing up your game plan, right? It's your first step, the quick one. Boom, once you get a hold of the leg, don't let go. Bob, once I take them down, turn them, right? So you're thinking the same process again.
Right, okay. So you're simplifying it, but you're bringing it back to the evidence you've already got, which is I always win like this. You're in that moment, you're sort of blocking out all the external noise, and you'll make it simple to you to know this is the one thing I've got to do. My strength is I'm fast, I'm quick, I'm a cheetah. I love this. It's just so great to see at the very top level of sports, you're winning gold medals, or sorry, you're winning medals, and you're able to then simplify it down to, in the moment, this is the one thing I've got to focus on. Quick.
I do the same thing. Like you and I were talking before you go do a keynote, right? You could be a million things that could happen before you step on stage, right? Guess what I'm thinking about? Three things. I think of wash, rinse, repeat. What am I going to do today? You know what I mean? I'm going to tell this story. I'm going to tell this story and this story. I only tell three stories and whatever conversation that I'm going to have on a keynote, and then I do a workshop. You know what I mean? And folks just go on, top three things. What am I going to do? And because, a weird question could come up, anything could happen. You just got to be ready for it, right?
It's so fascinating. It's so fascinating. And what I was going to ask you is about how do you apply that to other things in your life? But what you've done, you've almost taken that quite simple framework from when you're on the mats, and even applying it to your keynote to say, if I focus on these three things, I'll be successful.
Correct. And it didn't matter. Pro football did the same thing, right?
And when you apply it to pro football, what was the three things, or how did you apply it to football?
Well, pro football, different, except you're going to apply the same three things. I was an offensive lineman, so a blocker. You've seen NFL football before, and as a big old lineman in protection, first thing is you're set, right? So because you're in a stance. So for me, the first thing is the set, and once I'm set properly, it knocks up all these other things. And so I just have a domino effect on the same thing. Aggression, first step, quick, where's my foot pointed? Where's this? And so I had a pretty good mentor beside me. He was like the best football player in the league at the time. And beside me, good relationship with him. Used to watch him, same thing, no different than Bruce, actually. Tell you. So you had a Bruce Baumgartner, and all I did is I had the guy who was the best guy in the world at the time. Bruce went on to win 84. She was the first ever, not American, anybody in the world that won 4 Olympic medals in 4 Olympics. She 84, 88, 92, 96. So, was a pretty good wrestler, right? And I just learned everything from him. And I just watched them. And we watched. We had no computers back then. We had VHS tapes, and he had a big mudroom, not different from my office in the university, and I had VHS tapes of every wrestler in the world, and we used to analyze it. Guess what he said to me? Well, we've got 6 minutes in the match. What 3 moves are we doing for each person, right? And okay, here's what we're going to do in China. Here's what we're going to do with, Bulgaria. Here's what we're going to do with this country. We're going to wrestle this guy. What are the 3 moves we're going to do? And we brought it down. What are we going to specialize? Where are we going to attack on these 3 things? It was like simplicity. They were just, and it was like, and we had it down to a science, and going into the Olympics, and we ended up in the Olympic final. It would have been a better relationship if he would have let me win the final. Then it would have been a better relationship, right? The butter.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would have never made it there without that teachings and everything else and learning from him, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Isn't it so interesting that he took you with him on his journey? You then train together, spar together, work together, and then you fight. You find yourself in the final together. And
how many? Well, it's even more interesting. My kid wrestled for Canada for a number of years. He's obviously retired now. My baby now is 32. My kids I got coming up 5 grandkids. But my kid wrestled. He goes, at one time, he goes, Dad, they're still used around there in the wrestling world once in a while. I go, yeah. I said, for what? And I'm thinking, all the crazy shit I did. And he goes, no, you know what a Bob Molle is? Bob Molle. And I said, my name? Like, yeah, they call it a Bob Molle. And I said, what's a Bob Molle? He goes, a Bob Molle? Seriously? You don't know? And I said, no. He goes, it's when they find the top person in the world, you go train with them. Interesting, like, how many 40 some years later, that people go, oh yeah, he goes out and trains with that person who's the top in the world, because no one ever did it before, right? Just, you kind of broke the mold, right?
It's great advice, isn't it? If you want to be great at something, find someone who's already great at it and work with them. What great advice.
Beautiful thing about pro football, same thing, right? And got in fact, he inducted me in the Hall of Fame like 30 years later at our pro football team, and I was beside him, and I learned everything from him, right? I just sat beside him and Phil, what are you looking for here? What are you looking for here? And just soak it all in, right? And I ended up playing beside him. He inducted me in the Hall of Fame, and we were friends and good relationships. But, there's one key part of it. If you got good relationships, you can go just about anywhere in the world, right?
That's true. How much then, taking reflection off that, how much do you feel that your environment and the people that you're around are critical to success?
Yeah, that'd be a tough time knocking it down to below 80%, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule.
Mm.
80% of it is the people around you. Yeah, they're a product of your environment, right?
Yeah.
And everybody is, and stuff like that, mindset, everything. Can you do this? Someone telling you, we're going to take on the world. The next thing, someone told me that. I had a great mentor that said, oh, we're going to take on the world. When you're a young kid and someone says that, oh, I just want to win national championships. And then someone's, expands your, I would say, context, the way you look at things. And you go, hey, if I win the national championship enough, that's good enough. And then someone goes, no, we're going to take on the world. Okay. 18 years old, I go, okay, let's go on this journey. Okay, how do I do that? Right. So crucial. I had so many great people around me. I was the luckiest human being in the world. Like, I felt at the time, because I was so grateful to be around. My brothers always said, you're the luckiest bastard in the world. No, I think you bring your luck on from relationships and everything else. I truly believe that. I got great relationships, continue still to this day. That fortunately, I've lost most of the guys I played pro football with, but yeah, I know I had good relationships all the way around. I had a great environment in every sport, because I managed relationships pretty good.
Yeah, and how much does your success come down to loving what you do? So it sounds like when you were wrestling, you absolutely loved every part, even the crucial, even the excruciating moments of training. You still talk about it fondly, that you showed up to training, you trained to exhaustion. But it sounds like, and even when you're hitting the mats, it feels like you exude happiness and confidence all from it.
Oh, uh, I was relentless trainer, so it was right up my alley. It was like the perfect sport for me. I think my mom, if she was still alive, she didn't go. I didn't know what to do with my son because he was so active all the time, right? And when he found the sport of wrestling, she just goes, go, because he could go like, yeah, it's just a ball of energy, and he wanted to go. And once I found the sport of wrestling, I was just like, man, this is my, I can draw, and I get a scholarship for this, and I'm just like, wow, this is fantastic, and I can drive that guy into the mat and pin his ass, and I'm going to outwork him, and I'm just going to work him until he can't move. And that was my mentality back at the time, was just, I'll out-train everybody. I'm serious. I wish it was more scientific at the time. We didn't have the science behind it, but I had an engine that never just shut down. I didn't take a day off. I wish I knew training like, you need just say, look, go put down a lazy boy for, 8 hours this afternoon, and, sip on a protein shake for one day or something like that. I wish I had the science of all the nutrition, but, we didn't have it back in the day, but I would have loved it. You know what I mean? You always think about what it could have been if you had a weightlifting coach, you had all these other things with you, right? So I kind of stand. That's my fantasy. It's just thinking, I'm a sick puppy. I'm just going to think about all the things that you weightlifting coach, I had nutrition coach, and this and that and that. What could have been? But it's all pipe dream, right? It's all gone, past the days, but good memories all the way through it, like just fantastic memories, and very grateful I got to experience it.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's really incredible. When you reflect upon some of those times, you think about, your wrestling days. What do you take from it? When you reflect on it, how do you feel about it?
Great question. Reflect about it. There's a famous wrestler in the United States, and you can Google him after, and I remember some of the quotes and stuff like that, people of wrestling, and he talks about once you've wrestled, everything else is easy. So it was kind of like the pinnacle of sports, right? And the guy's name was Dan Gable, and Dan Gable only lost one match in his career, and he actually went to his, I think, 72 Olympics undefeated. No one scored a point on him. That's how good he was. American. Then he took on the University of Iowa, and that was his quote. It was, once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy. And it's so true. I got companies. I got, my public speaking business. I got my consulting business. I got you run companies. People go, oh, it's just hard. It's just hard. It's just hard. Then I wrote a new book, and then it's not hard. And you know what I mean? Like, it's so true. Once you've wrestled, everything else is a joke. And life is so easy, right? It's all your perspective, right? Like, I still train. I bike every day to the gym. I'm 62. I turned 63 this year. Unfortunately, most of the guys I played pro football with, like we were talking about, I buried half my buddies and well, half my buddies. But I got a bike. I'm a sick puppy, so I still train. Like, I got a bike, pedal bike in all these cities across Canada that I have customers at, right? So Vancouver, I live in Victoria, Canada. Vancouver, I got a bike. You know what I mean? I got a bike in Calgary. I got a bike in Winnipeg. I got a bike. You know what I mean? I get off the plane, and guess what I'm doing? I'm exercising. It's part of my life, right? And then I go to the gym every day, get a little weights in, get a little swim in, steam room, you know what I mean? Sauna, cold shower, and bike home. And people just go, you're still doing that at 62? And I go, I do hill runs or hill bikes. I do everything. But it gets me energized, right?
Yeah.
I haven't lost the will to work out, right?
I love that. I really love that. That's an important, interesting point there. So some of your buddies, I'm so sorry to hear that some of them have passed on now. That's a real sad, that's a real shame to hear. And also, it's not that old, by the way. If you're, this 60s is not that old, certainly not anymore. So I'm thinking about longevity here. How important is it then, in your opinion, for training, the nutrition for longevity? Sounds like you still love training every day, which is possibly one of the keys to vitality.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think a lot of guys, especially pro football, is where I lost. And being an old lineman, I was like 300 when I retired from pro football, over 300 pounds. All the guys were pretty big, and a lot of them didn't lose the weight after they retired, right? And some people, cancer, some people heart attack, some of that. I remember a stat came out and said the average pro offensive lineman, which we were the big guys that push everybody out, move them out for the running backs. Our lifespan was 55, and I never believed it. I buried my first two buddies on linemen at 42, right? And I went, and one of them was my best man at 42. He had cancer, and he was done within a couple months. So it was, and even wrestling, Olympic wrestlers they're so large at the time, there was no weight limit. Now there's a weight limit, came in like 1986 after I retired, but you could weigh 440 pounds back in my day, 350. It didn't matter, right? It was everything over 220 pounds back in my day. And then they capped the weight limit at 286, I think it is now. And you can't weigh over 286. They won't even let you on the mats anymore because people were throwing their biggest. It wasn't good for the sport. Like it was just like a sumo match. You know what I mean? Like it was, you throw a 400-pound guy up there and he didn't move. You know what I mean? And but that came in after I could handle the big guys. I just know how to handle big guys. And once I took them down, I turned everybody. So it wasn't a big deal for me. And but it's changed. A lot of guys kept that weight on. I probably weighed in at like 225 the other day. Like I'm 75 pounds down from my pro football days and work out every day. I think it's everything is that when your question is here, I like to think of, shock myself every once in a while and go, okay, what do we got to do now to get myself? But I'm a sick puppy. I did like crazy things like, I did an Ironman, in my 40s, not too many guys my size are doing Ironman, you know what I mean? But it's kind of like the original thing you and I talked about from the beginning, get comfortable, be uncomfortable. Well, how many people, ex-linemen are doing an Ironman? None, right? Yeah, and so I go, well, it's time for me. And then I went adventure racing, then at marathons, then I did this, then I tried everything. I think the life's for the living. Like we only got X amount of days. Why not go balls out? Yeah, I heard a vicious rumor. Once you're dead, you can rest the rest of your life. You're asleep. Why not? It's better To wear out than rust out, you know.
Yeah. I love that. I love that mindset. You say you're a sick puppy, but do you think that's because and some level of you just loves to push yourself, loves to train, like it?
For sure.
Yeah. So there must be a level of, because I love training, by the way. I absolutely love it. I have trained for a lot of years now for all different types of training, whether it's running or whether it's weights, whether it's CrossFit, just go to the gym and train. So I'm a huge advocate for it. And I often think about longevity because as you get older, it feels like a lot of people definitely stop that. Then the weight piles on, the body isn't as fit as it used to be, and then I feel like that's where problems like happen. Start heart disease, cancers. I just feel like if you keep training, you're going to stay. Body's going to be. You've got to constantly be pushing your body, and this is why I love the get comfortable being uncomfortable. You've got to proactively put yourself in a situation where you're uncomfortable every day, even if it's minor. I mean, I find it very easy to lift weights, but only because I've been doing it for so long. But then there is still, it's not pain. I can't even describe it. It's a minor. It's minorly. It's. I can't even find the word. It's a minor inconvenience. It's minor uncomfortable to lift weights. It's like it's not that hard, but there's unbelievable and dramatic benefits for your body. You have to do it.
It's funny you say that. I was at the gym, and I'm a social animal, so I say hi to everybody. But once I'm focused in on my workout, I'm like and you know what I'm doing, push-ups, and I just kind of go from one set to the other. I don't have a 5 second rest into something else I'm doing or something. You know what I mean? So if I'm doing, you know, core, then I'm jumping into something else, jump squats, this, that. I just got a whole regime that and I'll do 5 sets of whatever. And I'll have 5 different exercises. So when I come off that thing 25 minutes later, I'm just pouring sweat. And people look at me because most of the people, like 98% of them, are just kind of, they do their set, rest for 5 minutes, do their set. You know what I mean? And I'm just a ball of sweat. And a young kid comes by and goes, we start talking. He wanted to talk to me. And he goes, well, you're the book. Get comfortable, being uncomfortable. He goes, and I said, yeah. He said, what motivates you? Like, yeah. I said, oh, I just like life, I enjoy everything. And he goes, because we look at you and you're the one at your age, you're probably the hardest working guy in there. You haven't lost the mentality of it, right? And then I feel good, my body's sweated, and then go in and have a swim and a steam and bike home, whole cold shower and bike home. And people recognize that, at 67 years old, you can still crank your body out and get a good sweat going. And I quite like it. It's a high for me, tell you the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that. I love the message, which is you've got to keep getting after it. You've got to keep training because it doesn't matter what you do, but it's always going to benefit you. It always shocks me, by the way, when I get to the gym first thing in the morning, there's not more people there. Like, I just feel like, you know, there's only a few guys that go to the gym that I go to, and I'm thinking that this is such an amazing gym. Why are we not fighting to get through the door? Like, this is crazy to me. But, as they say, the heaviest weight is the door.
Well, on that, I think I get the best deal in the world. People giggle. My wife goes, "What do you want? What do you want?" And I never want anything. I don't. A man, I don't need it. I don't have any wants really. I don't. Oh, I need this and I need that. I'm just like the more I grow, I'm such a happy person, just content with what I have. And I never take a vehicle out. You know what I mean? Like unless I have to pick up my wife, she flies in. She lives in a different city, flies in on the weekends. And at the ranch, and then I pick her up. That's the only time I take a vehicle. I'm on a bike all the time. I'm, exercising and stuff like that. But I enjoy the journey. I enjoy the exercise. And I find it's like I thought some of my best problem solving is actually on a bike by the ocean, just cruising around. And I go, oh, now I'm going to solve that problem. My consulting, if they're contacting me, they're usually contacting me. It's the problem, and I got to solve it, right? And I find that a challenge, and I find my exercise is the one where I solve most of my problems. Is when I'm out.
Yeah, I find that too, by the way. Just you go out for a walk or you're out for a run or you're outside. You don't solve problems sat in a boardroom, in a stuffy boardroom.
Here,
That doesn't
just get
happen.
away.
It's when you're out. It's when you're out and you're participating in life, you're in the fresh air. That's when answers start coming to you, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, for me, that's for sure. That's why release break and in the workout. And even better, like we got a huge from the Commonwealth Games. Yeah, the Commonwealth Games in Victoria, and it's a legacy. You know, they got the whatever the dive tank, how many Olympic pools, the gym, everything, and the facility where you're giggling about. You know, how come more people aren't breaking on the door to work out? Well, it's even at my age, after 60, it's $30 a month for your membership. So a buck a day. What better investment can you have? A buck a day for a phenomenal facility, and people don't use it, right? I'm just like, I'm there every day, man.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. So we're definitely aligned on that point. I was just thinking, I was reflecting on something you were saying earlier about how tough wrestling was. And I think about that and mainly because I think any sport or pursuit where it's you're the man against another man. So you're an individual competing against another individual. So therefore the buck, everything is with you. There's no excuses, 100% responsibility. I'm just thinking about when you then transition across to football, when you're in a much larger team of men, how does that change in terms of the mindset? Because there's also so much that you know you're in a team sport versus an individual sport. How does the mindset shift from having responsibility, total responsibility, to versus now you're kind of part of a team, you're to support the team. It's quite different in some respects, isn't it?
It's a great question, and it is, but it isn't. So if you think of a wrestling as an individual sport, I might challenge you on that because great wrestling coaches too, because the wrestling coaches, you know, they can do a sign to you. It's like my kid, he was in a jiu-jitsu tournament the other day. I brought him up wrestling, and he joined the World Fireman Policeman Games, and we won the wrestling. He entered in that. He's a fireman. And they had the world championships, I think, every 4 years, kind of like the Olympics or something like that. They had it in Canada. So I flew out to watch him, and I could just coach him. And then I said, obviously, I don't know jiu-jitsu, but he entered the black belt. But I could just look at my kid, and I just do a couple of hand signals, and he knew what to do on jiu-jitsu to take the guy down. And so we took him, you know, and he ended up winning the tournament. And people go up, they said, oh, you wrestlers, so you see your dad just hand signal you in 2 seconds. So, you know, there's still the communication that you still get from a good coach, right? You got good quarter people. That never hurts you either, right? So it's still a team aspect on that. And I think that football, the only thing that changed was I got 5 relationships now that I have to work with because at any point you can't get that quarterback sack. We got to be on sync, you know, who you got. And if there's a switch in alignment, the last second, you know, you got 2 word keys where the guy gets what you're doing. You know what I mean? And they got your back. And, you know, if you got good communication with them, and we were the same group all year in, year out. And it was great because I had the same group of people who got along very well and we were very successful. We're in the championship game every other year. So it goes back. And you and I were talking about it in the beginning. It's what's the relationship you have with them, right? And if you have good relationships with your coaches and everything, I don't care what sport it was. I found it easy and enjoyable, like exciting because there's new competition all the time. You do it together. So in wrestling, you're kind of by yourself. You kind of celebrate by yourself, I think you'd say. But the magnitude of you know wrestling and worldwide Olympics is like huge. I had no idea how big it was. The celebration, but the celebration is even bigger when you win a championship with 40 guys. It's a different celebration, but I enjoyed both of them. Like there are people who would talk about that, but the hand, you know, physically you're pretty good shape for both sports. And but wrestling's the toughest sport in the world, not even close. Anybody who said anything else, they don't know what they're talking about. They haven't wrestled.
Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting. You mentioned communication there and building strong relationships. And something I was also reflecting on is the fact you and your wife have been together for 40 years, which you don't hear of as much nowadays. How much of communication? What's the secrets to success in a 40-year relationship?
I don't know if I have it down pat any better than anybody else, but I could just say I'm still Well, I love her more every year, which is really cool. But we have like a totally different relationship. My wife lives in another city. She lives in Calgary and flies into Victoria on the weekends. And while this weekend we're meeting in Vancouver because we're off to Australia for a month with our daughter because she just had her third child in Australia. So we travel quite a bit together, but we live in different cities, but together 40 years, like her and I are on the same page. The biggest thing I do, I'm simplifying it. It's back to one, two, three again. You know, I mean, I make life simple. I wake up and she's a sleeper. I'm not a sleeper. I get, 5, 6 hours of sleep, if that, right? Then I'm ready to go again. I'm hardwired that way. Well, I can put her down. We can go to bed at the same time and she can sleep for 12 hours, right? And then when she wakes up, I know it coffee. And I'll walk in when I hear her moving. I her a good cup of coffee. And I say, honey, it's pretty simple. I think it is anyways. I always like service, right? You always think of as you grow even more older and stuff like that, you help each other out. You're just like, hey, and I go, hey, what are the top three things you want to do? Well, I want to get my vegetable groceries today. I want to do this, this, and this. So I find out what her top three are. I solve those, help with those two or three. What she says, happy wife, happy life, right? I just solve for her three problems, right? Or a system in that thing. But it's wash, rinse, repeat again. Same thing, simplify it, right? It's kind of like, what's the book? Don't sweat the small stuff. You know what I mean? Like, said, what's the three things you would like to make it a great day for you? I always think of her first. I put her needs in front of mine, right?
Yeah, happy wife, happy life. Only men who are in long-term relationships understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I heard some men on another podcast, for quite a famous podcast in the UK, talking about that, and they were both single, or they both weren't married. Maybe they're in relationships. They were like, "Well, what the hell is that? What is that sort of mindset?" And all that. I'm like, it's because you're not married. It's because you don't understand. That's why.
yeah. And then she's happy, and I just like, and she'll probably want to cook something in where I just eat her food. I don't want to spend my time and day making up the food. She loves that. She likes the artistic part of, mixing this with that herb and that vegetable and this and that. And she loves that. So I can throw her in the kitchen. She'll want to walk in there or bike ride. She wants her exercise too and everything else. We could join up on that. But I find out what her top three and really, service. The happiest people in the world still help other people. They're not, I got a new car, I got a new house, they're not happy with that. They say it's, but it's so, superficial. Happiest people still serve, right?
Yeah. I love that, by the way. I've never heard anyone actually talk about a relationship in that way, which is you go and speak to your wife, find out what her top three are, what's the most important thing to her that day, and then help. I mean, it's incredibly beautiful and simple at the same time. We can all do this.
People complicate everything too much, right? I simplify everything. And I don't know, you ever heard well, I do this for business, right? So I do a thing, I don't know if you ever heard of Strength Finder. There's 34 strengths in the world. And, and so I analyze these for companies and I go, hey, put that person there. It's kind of like a chess match. That's what I do for a living. So companies hire me and I go, I'll do the Strength Finder and of the people and the company's not working well. And then I do the personality assessment and everything else. And I go, well, it's kind of like a chess game. Put that person there, put that person there, get rid of that person. They're pain in the ass, they're cancer. And so I do the analytics. And my number one strength and Strength Finder is called Maximizer. Be efficient. How do you take something good, make it great, right? And then find out what the top three are. It's Maximizer. I just get right to the top three and go and focus on what's important, right? And a lot of people might be dealing on item number 25. I go 1, 2, and 3. It's like, here's the three things I need to do. What a maximizer, get the most out for what the least bang for your buck, right? They just like with the least amount of effort, right? And if you ask that question, it's pretty, I don't need to be telling somebody what to do. I'm just receiving information. And then I do it once she's happy. I can take care of myself.
So it's so interesting during the whole course of this conversation, you've taken what I would define, from an outsider's perspective. Look, I don't know a lot about football or wrestling, but what you're basically saying is that you can take almost a very simple framework, breaking it down to three important things from a psychology perspective, and you've got these three really important things from wrestling, three important things from football, you've got three important things with your wife, and then you've got three important things that you take into your consulting and business relationships. You break it down so it's something really incredibly simple, but it's again, you're finding ways of finding what works and then rinse and repeat. It's so interesting because all of those fields are completely different, but you found almost like a framework to find success in your life.
Mm-hmm. But it's simplifying everything, right? Because people, all the research, and you know this, Simon, is what we talked about in the early conversation, was all about people handling stress, right? And people that don't handle stress well, they got too many things on their brain, right? And I don't have anxiety or anything. The only thing I got is a cat that wants to come up and join us in the thing here.
Oh,
Watch it, Charles.
he's welcome. He's welcome.
Yeah, when you say welcome, look who's here.
There we are.
He was walking, and my thing, sorry about that.
He's welcome. When I record podcasts at home, my cat sits next to me. So no.
He was sitting here jumping on my thing. Now he's just back to his normal spot here.
Oh, bless him. He looks like my old cat.
We're in an acreage.
He looks like my old cat.
We're in an acreage, so we gotta have a mouser, yeah.
Oh, I guess, yeah, great.
Yeah, but it's simplifying life, right? Like, why make it people? And that's what I find. People are stressed. They think of like 20 different things that could go wrong, and I'm just going, no, I just have to do three things to make it work, right?
That's an interesting thought about some anxiety, isn't it? Where people often get stuck in the 20 things that could go wrong. This could go wrong. That could go wrong in my business career today. That could go wrong at home. And that's where you get stuck in an anxiety cycle. And it's really interesting, again, for your counter to that is to focus on the three things that can make a difference today.
Well, and to take that a step further, when I walk in and you ever heard of Sandler sales system? If you Google on there, Sandler sales system calls it the pain fund. What are the three things you need to solve for that person? So when I sit down with the CEO of a company and I go, what keeps you awake at night? You know what I mean? What are the top three things? This, and this. And it sounds like you need this solved, and that solved. And that's what all my consulting business runs, right? Back down to the top three.
When you have those conversations with CEOs at that level, what do they know the three things that are the problem? Because I know, I think about the business that I'm in, we've got a lot of challenges. But it's easy to say it's a revenue problem. Well, sure. It's a business development problem. Like, sure. But what within that is the problem? Because every company's got a revenue problem. Doesn't matter who you are. So every company wants 20 or 30% more revenue, year upon year. That's the point. But to say it's just a revenue problem is not. So when you speak with your CEOs, are they clear on the problems, or is that part of defining, like, what are the issues that you're faced with? Because really, once you define them, you understand a problem statement, you can you can start working on it. But how much of the work is just in defining what the problem is?
A lot of the work, because you got to peel back the onion. And you nailed it, because every CEO or division of the company is going to say, something like that. Yeah, we got no revenue on this division. Bob, can you fix this or that? Then you got to start digging, right? And come on, like, how many? A lot, especially in my generation right now, I see a lot of family businesses, and they want to hand it down to the offspring, right? And they're not going to say it's the kids' the fault, but their kids aren't the right people in the bus, right? So that's a tough conversation too, where they put their daughter or their son in the operations or the head of sales or head of whatever division, but it got it handed down, and their kid's not the right person. It's not a fit. And that's a tough conversation. You talk about get comfortable, being uncomfortable. They don't want to hear that, right? No. They went to this school. They went to this and that. No, they're perfect for the job, and they're deserving of it. No, they're not. They're not the right person, right? And so that's a tough conversation. And to peel back the onion. So I'm pretty good at peeling back the onion and finding out what the problem is, right? And it is an uncomfortable conversation sometimes. And you gotta peel that onion back. And there might be a little bit of crying in the meantime. But if you're going to solve the problem, if it was all simple, then everybody would do it too, right?
Yeah, that's a tough conversation to have with someone, to say that, the people that you're planning to take over the business, who are your children, they're not ready, they don't have the experience, and they're going to ultimately be the problem. That is a tough conversation to have with someone. I can imagine that not going well quite a few times.
No. And people think, oh, I'll just put them new training and that, and they might not have the personality for it either, too, right? And I just say, no, you're trying to put the square peg in the round hole, right? And that is a tough conversation. But what's the definition of insanity, right?
Just continues to do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. That is insanity, isn't it? In business, but also in all of life.
Yeah. So I'm pretty good at picking the people. I go, okay, maybe we got this person over here in HR. This person who got an HR personality or this, but get them in a different, different peg. But it's a tough conversation because dad or mom's got their kid pegged out, taking over the business, right?
Mm. Bob, I've really loved our conversation today. So thank you so much for your time. And also I appreciate that it's 5 a.m. your side. So thank you so much for being up early, and you were on a plane yesterday doing a keynote. You're a busy man. You're a very busy man.
I enjoy it. I'm live. I'm usually an early morning riser, and I think I'm the first guy that had to have a cat on his lap while he did it.
You probably
I
are.
just,
Well, listen, it's been real great, but just to summarize quickly, I think what you've done today, you've really crystallized the fact that whatever walk of life and whatever pursuit you're going after, you can break it down to being something simple to find success down to three things. And that's kind of almost like a framework that you've had in wrestling and football, in your relationship, in your business consulting, in the book. Like, it's about being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and breaking it down to three things that really matter. And it's such a profound thing because you can apply it across so much.
it's been just a great journey for me, and I don't see myself ever retiring. I get energized every day, but make it simple. People complicate things way too much.
Yeah.
I simplify it. Welcome to the world of a maximizer.
Yeah, I love that. Bob, if someone wants to get out and get in contact and work with you, or of course get access to the book, what's the best way of reaching out and being in contact?
Yeah. Well, it's bobmolle.com, www.bobmolle.com. If they can fill out a form and stuff, they can get a hold of me. That's probably the easiest way, through LinkedIn or something like that. But my website's probably the easiest. And the books are all Get Comfortable Being Uncomfortable is all on Amazon. And that's under the flagship Get Comfortable Being Uncomfortable.com. So books there, it's on Amazon. There's multiple ways of getting that. You can grab the hardcover, whatever which you want. Simon, thank you very much for everything today.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Pleasure's all mine, sir.